On 28 February 2026, the United States and Israel launched coordinated military strikes on the Islamic Republic of Iran. In Operation Epic Fury's first 72 hours, the United States Central Command reported that over 1,700 targets had been struck in the most significant US military operation in the Middle East since the Iraq War. Israel's contribution to the joint operation, codenamed Operation Roaring Lion, was the largest air operation in Israel's history. Iran responded with military strikes of its own, firing hundreds of missiles and drones against not just Israel, but nations across the region, including Qatar, the UAE, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Iraq. As the war enters its fourth week, it is clear that Iran's military capabilities have been significantly weakened, and many of Iran's most senior military, intelligence, and security leaders, including Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, have been killed. Yet, so far, there have been no major defections from either Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, or from Iran's army, known as the Artesh. Iran's missile and drone attacks across the region have also continued, and its proxies, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon, may increasingly attempt to mobilize in Iran's defense. It is too early for predictions that Iran's theocratic regime is on the verge of surrender. Instead, let's pause and look back at the history of US-Iran relations. That context is important for not only understanding how we got to this point, but it's also useful for thinking about how things may play out in the coming weeks and months. The history of US-Iran relations since World War II is extraordinarily complex and tumultuous. But there are events that, in important practical and symbolic ways, capture the broad trend lines that have characterized different phases in that relationship. So, here are 4 milestones in the history of US-Iran relations that can help us to better understand the present. Milestone 1, 1953 coup to reinstall Shah Pahlavi. When Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi rose to power in 1941, replacing his father as Iran's ruler, it heralded what would become a golden era in Iran's relationship with the United States and Britain. Like his father, Pahlavi pursued an agenda of rapid modernization, driven in large part by his accommodation of Western interests, especially in Iran's oil industry. The depth of his relationship with, particularly, Britain and the United States is captured in the events of 1953. Known as Operation Ajax, America's CIA and Britain's MI6 covertly backed a coup that overthrew Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, after he nationalized the country's oil industry and reinstated Pahlavi as Iran's ruler. In 2009, then US President Barack Obama admitted America's involvement in the 1953 coup. This was followed in 2017 by the release of previously classified US State Department and CIA documents related to Operation Ajax, and, in 2023, a public acknowledgement by the CIA itself. With Pahlavi back as ruler, Iran became arguably America's most important ally in the Middle East during the Cold War. Under Pahlavi's rule, the United States secured access to Iranian oil, and the US provided invaluable political and security assistance to his regime. Now back in power, Pahlavi's authoritarian rule became increasingly brutal, and his white revolution of modernization and land reforms increasingly divisive. As his unpopularity rose amongst Iranians, so too did their broad resentments of the Western powers that had reinstated him and that were now praising his leadership. The stage was set for a seismic shift in Iran's trajectory and that of US-Iran relations. The next milestone in US-Iran relations is the 1979 Islamic Revolution. In its wake, US-Iran relations would transform from Cold War partnership to rivalry and hostility. By the late 1970s, economic hardships and the Pahlavi regime's extreme repression inspired mass protests across Iran. In January 1979, the man known as the last king of Iran, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, fled into exile, eventually settling in the United States. In his wake, Ruhollah Khomeini returned from exile to Iran and led the Islamic Revolution. This resulted in the theocratic autocracy that now rules over the Islamic Republic of Iran. By the end of 1979, The Iran hostage crisis, which was when the US embassy in Tehran was stormed by Iranian protesters, in many ways set the stage for the tone and animosity of US-Iran relations for the next 3.5 decades. It is worth remembering just how hostile relations between the US and Iran were through the 1980s and 1990s. For example, during the Iran-Iraq War, which killed over 1 million people between August 1980 and August 1988, Saddam Hussein's Iraq received US and European intelligence and military support for their war effort against Iran. On 3 July 1988, an Air Flight 655 was mistakenly shot down by USS Vincennes, killing all 290 on board. Throughout this period, Iranian-backed proxies were directly responsible for killing hundreds of Americans. From the 1983 bombing of the US Embassy in Beirut, which killed 63, the 1983 bombing of US Marine barracks in Beirut that killed 241 US personnel, to the 1996 Khobar Tower bombings in Saudi Arabia that killed 19 US personnel. Ultimately, sweeping US-led economic sanctions on Iran in the mid-1990s hamstrung its economy and applied intense political pressures on the regime. The next milestone in US-Iran relations captures the paradox, the unintended consequences of US strategy in the Middle East. The Second Gulf War. Operation Iraqi Freedom began on 20 March 2003 with the US-led invasion of Iraq, resulting in the toppling of the Saddam Hussein regime. However, in doing so, the regional balance of power across the Middle East shifted in Iran's favour. After all, Iraq under Saddam Hussein had been Iran's principal rival since the Iran-Iraq War through the 1980s. Iran would emerge as the great beneficiary of the political vacuum triggered by Saddam Hussein's removal, forging ties with Iraq's Shia-dominant political parties and armed groups and embedding itself in Iraq's political and security structures. Iran was also crucial for fomenting the insurgencies in Iraq via a mix of personnel, financial, technical, training and logistical support. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' Foreign Operations Branch, known as the Quds Force, then under the command of Qasem Soleimani, broadened and deepened its sphere of influence into the 2010s via direct support to militant proxies across Lebanon, Syria and Iraq, or what it called the Axis of Resistance. As Tehran's strategic influence in the Middle East expanded, its geopolitical position and leverage significantly improved. This provides important context for the fourth and final milestone, the Iran nuclear deal and its unravelling. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, known simply as the Iran nuclear deal, was the 2015 agreement between the Islamic Republic of Iran, the United States, China, France, Germany, Russia, the UK, and EU to ensure that Iran's nuclear program will be exclusively peaceful. Under President Obama, diplomacy, albeit briefly, replaced hostility in US-Iran relations with an agreement that applied strict limitations and enforced an international inspection regime on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for relief from economic sanctions. Supporters of the deal praised it as an attempt to contain nuclear proliferation and open channels for further diplomatic engagement with Iran. Detractors viewed the agreement as ceding space, time and leverage to a regionally ascendant Iran. In 2018, President Donald Trump withdrew the United States from the agreement and reinstated sweeping sanctions. As diplomatic tensions intensified and US-Iran relations deteriorated, the Trump administration ramped up the economic, political and military pressure on Iran, including killing the Quds Force commander, General Qasem Soleimani, on 3 January 2020. However, since the 7 October 2023 attacks on Israel by Hamas, a long-time beneficiary of Iranian support, Israel has played a major role in military strikes on Iran. The 12-day war between Israel and Iran in June 2025, with hindsight, is a harbinger for the war that is unfolding now.
If you enjoy Countercheck, please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow Countercheck on Substack, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram for more content. Countercheck is produced by Roadback Media. Please visit us at roadbackmedia.com to learn more.